Hello, Steve Mills here, and welcome back to my Results Podcast. It's great to have you here. It's been a little while. I think it's just over a week since I did a new episode, so apologies for that, and thanks for sticking with me. If this is the first time you've heard or listened to my podcast, then thank you even more for being here, and get yourself signed up. Subscribe to my podcast to get all my latest tips, hints, ideas and ways in which you can grow your business. Now, this podcast's a bit weird. This particular episode is a podcast on podcasts, right? So I'm going to be talking about podcasting on my podcast, okay? Now, if you've not got a podcast, why the hell not? You should have a podcast. If you're in business, if you run your own business, you should definitely have a podcast. Do you know, I get over 7,000 views every single episode. Not views. They're not views. They're not looking at it, Steve, are they? They're not watching it on YouTube, although you could be actually, because it's linked to YouTube. Listens, is that the right word? Is that even such a word used in that context? I'm not quite sure. But anyway, I'll stop waffling and I'll get on with it. So, you should have a podcast. As I've said, I get 7,000 views, somewhere between 7 and 7.5. I think I've hit eight a few times, each and every time I do it. Now, you might think, well, it must cost a lot. No, it doesn't. It's basically free to do the episode. I think I pay something like $200 a year. And for that, potentially, I could do one every hour even. I could certainly do probably more than I do, and I try and do at least 2 or 3 a week. So, it's a great opportunity for next to nothing. You can set this up, and most of the marketing that you do on it, or certainly that I've done it, is all automated. How do you get 7,000 people? Well, it's certainly not because I'm like, a pop star or a footballer or somebody, mega famous. It's because I've done the marketing. I've already mentioned, as soon as I do the podcast, it goes straight up to YouTube. I don't have to do anything. It goes out to about 40 different radio stations. And it's up there on their website. I don't have to do anything. I don't do that. But the two big ones is that it automatically gets uploaded to iTunes and to Amazon Music. You can get Steve Mills on your Alexa, on your, mobile, whatever it's called, the thing that plays music when you talk to it, that one, whatever it is called. You get the idea here. I really hope you do. So, it's a great opportunity. It really is. But arguably, the bigger opportunity is to be a guest on other people's podcasts. So let's say, for example, you became a guest on mine. That's immediately giving you access to 7,000 people. How do you like to do an interview and get that interview listened to by 7,000 people for nothing? What's it cost you to appear on somebody else's podcast? Absolutely nothing. Nothing whatsoever. Zero, zip, nada. No money at all. So, why wouldn't you do it? Potentially it's going to take, 20 minutes, half an hour, plus the time it takes to find people and persuade them and get them signed up to doing, for you being on their podcast. So that might take a little bit of time. I appreciate that. But do you know what? It's well worth it. It really is. Podcasting, if you think about this and let's just take a step back in time. You and I, well, certainly I anyway, I'm old enough to remember where if you wanted to get yourself, in front of people on what was or is still a video, really the only way of doing that was on TV. You'd stick an advert up on TV. And the problem with that, as we all know, it used to cost an absolute arm and a leg. And, it was very, very, very expensive. Now, I can do it for nothing on YouTube or Vimeo. I can take a video, I can do an advert, and I can put it up there for zero. Or I can set it up, and with a little bit of money, I can say to YouTube, show this to all these people. And they could, I can be very, very targeted. I'm not going to show it to, people all over the world who wouldn't be interested in what I do. I'm going to select business owners, perhaps in the UK or perhaps in the Middle East or wherever it is. I'm currently looking to create some awareness and get some leads. And then I can start the process of marketing and getting my podcast out there. Very, very powerful to do, whether it's on a podcast or whether it's on video. But if YouTube is to TV, then podcasting is to the radio. Podcasting is audio. Podcasting is getting your advert on the radio. And again, I don't even know how much advertising on the radio is right now, but I'm going to suggest it's somewhere between about, maybe £3,000 to £6,000 for a 6-week advert that runs once every hour, on the local radio. Yeah, something like that. Well, and that's great, nothing wrong with that, but how many people are going to be listening to it? Well, on mine, as I've already told you, it's about 7,000 views. Now, don't get me wrong, it wasn't like that on day one. I think it was about 50, 60, people listening to it. That was all. It takes time. That one of the biggest problems that I see all the time in marketing is people grow impatient. They set things up and they think that it should work from day one. And it doesn't. It's like, I suppose, trying to lose weight. If you go, you go down to the gym and you work really hard and at the end of it, you're absolutely knackered and you get on the scales and you've lost how much? Nothing. And you do it again tomorrow and you've still lost nothing. And you do it again 2 weeks later and you've still only lost maybe a pound. And then 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks later, you've lost, 20, 30 pounds because you've done things consistently. And that's the case with marketing. I hear all the time people tell me, well, I've been on LinkedIn and, I posted on there once a week and, I didn't really win any business. No, Steve. Why is that then? Well, it's because, it's like going to the gym once a week and spending half an hour in there, and then 3 months later packing it in because it's not working. It probably won't work. You got to put some effort into your marketing, guys, and that could be the same with, picking up the phone. I always remember one of the funniest ones I ever heard was a client told me that, he said, he was a new client, potentially a new client. And he said to me, I've tried direct mail. I did that. And he said, but it doesn't work. And I said, oh, right. What did you do? He said, well, I sent out a load of letters and didn't even get a lead. No inquiries at all. I said, okay. How many times did you send them out? Once, he said. Okay. How many letters did you send? 10, he said. 10 letters sent out once and direct mail doesn't work. By the way, direct mail's an interesting one right now, isn't it? Nobody's doing it. I wonder whether we should be doing it, whether we should be doing it internally and whether you should be doing it in your business. It's a great way of differentiating yourself, a great way of being different. Not suggesting you go and send out 10,000 leaflets or letters and see how it goes. But if you sent out 50 per day and followed them up by phone, and then you did the same again for a couple of weeks, just to see if there's any value in what you're doing, that might be a good way of moving forward. But anyway, let's go back to podcasting, if we may. So I really hope I've convinced you. I hope that you're going to do it. I hope you'll invite me onto your podcast if you'd like me to come along. As long as you've got a decent amount of views. I don't want to be on podcasts that are not being listened to, so you might want to build it up a little bit before you ask me. One final point here that I think is worth mentioning, and that is, whilst a lot of the marketing is automated, there's also a load of stuff that I can do. I can actually do myself. So, for example, I could take this episode of my podcast and add it to my website. I could add it to a blog. I could post it or share it on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and so on and so forth. So there's loads of things I could do. I could produce an email and send it out to my thousands of contacts through my email system, and so on. So whilst the automation's great, there's also lots of stuff that I can do that would add even more value. So I hope that's been of interest to you. I hope you've subscribed to my podcast. If you haven't, do so now. I also hope you'll subscribe to me on YouTube. By the way, don't type in Steve Mills, because there's hundreds of the buggers. What you're better off doing is typing in Steve Mills Marketing. You'll get to find me there. If you want to know more from me, if you want a meeting with me, I'm very happy to do that. Go to my website, which is steve-mills, MILLS.com, and click on one of the gold buttons. That'll give you access to my online diary, and you can find a time that's just right for you, and we can meet up over Zoom. Thanks ever so much for listening, and I look forward to speaking to you again soon. One final point. I was just listening to Dan Bradbury's podcast. Dan's a UK guy. He's a little bit like me. He's a business advisor type guy. Really good guy. And he finished his podcast by saying something that I want to finish mine by. Not that I'm nicking it off him. It's just that I thought it was a really good comment. He said, if you want a better business, become a better business owner. If you want a better business, become a better business owner. I really like that. So my question to you is, how much time, money and effort are you putting in to becoming a better business owner? Thanks ever so much for listening, and I look forward to speaking again soon. Thank you.